Well, hello again, guys. Welcome to our show tonight. We are so glad that you are here. So glad that you are here to join us tonight. Hopefully, you had a great day. Hopefully, you had a great weekend. It seemed like there were more people out this weekend than normally are out for Halloween. In our complex, we have people who come and do, I guess, trunk or treat. And so there were so many people out there. So glad that you are here. This is Diabetes Awareness Month, November. And so tonight we are talking about diabetes awareness. In particular, our topic is things you don't know about diabetes revealed, right? So glad that you are joining us for this wonderful topic that we're gonna hopefully have some fun with it. If you are new to the channel, I am Dr. Dwain Woode. That's Wood with an E. And the E stands for endocrinology. And I help people understand their bodies so they can take charge of their health, avoid complications, and live healthy, fulfilling lives. Welcome to our channel tonight. Just some housekeeping. If you are new, please put new in the comments because we would love to welcome you here. We've got a good group of people and we'd love to give a shout out to you. If you are asking a question, please make sure you put a Q in front of that question so that we know that it is a question, and we will get to those as we get into the show tonight. Okay. If you have not already done so, please go ahead and go over to any of our social media platforms. You can reach us. You can see us on LinkedIn, TikTok, of course, here on this YouTube channel, on our Twitter page, and on Buy Me a Coffee if you would like to support what we do here, and we would love for you to do that. If you are interested in getting some more of our exciting content, of course, we're here every Monday night at 7 o'clock. We are doing a TikTok at 10 o'clock every Friday, and those are great because we're doing, little 60-minute segments. They're not long, and they're talking about different aspects of health, about diabetes, about shopping, about eating. So go over there and join that so you can pick up on some of those tips. And then every day at 9 a.m. on our Twitter feed, we put out some inspirational thoughts. We do some recipes, some general guidelines, and some tips for general health. Okay, so make sure you do that. Our question for today, right? True or false? True or false? And you want to put this in the comments. There are almost 500 million diabetics in the world. Almost 500 million diabetics in the world. True or false? All right, so let's see who's here with us. I think I saw. Oh, here's Maria. Hey, Maria. How are you? Welcome. She says, good evening, America. And Maria is joining us from the Philippines. And thank you. She's also saying, make sure you type the Q before your questions. Okay. And then, of course, if you're new, go ahead and put new in the comments. Hey, Monica. Monica's joining us. What's going on? Thank you for the pictures. You guys look great in your costumes. Love to see the little guy. And Donald, hey man, good evening. How are you doing? And Maria saying hi to everybody. She said hi, Monica. Yee! Hi, Donald. Good evening. Hey, Lauren, how are you? Thanks for joining us tonight. And then we've got, let's see, WM is new. Hey, man, welcome. Or man, lady, person, welcome to our channel. We're glad that you are able to join us tonight on this episode. Monica says, if we're not new, do we put old? If you want to do that, Monica, yes, you can do that. That would be great. And she said that the little guy is watching with her. Glad that you guys are there. Lauren, thank you. And of course, Maria saying hi, WM. You guys are silly. So Maria says you put V for vintage. If you're old, put V for vintage. And then let's see, Donald is coming, and Donald, I'm gonna hold your answer for a minute, and we'll get to that. Good, filling out light to follow up. Okay, awesome. All right. So there are there are, and I'm going to give away, well, let me do Donald's first, right? So our question was, right, there are almost 500 million diabetics in the world, true or false, right? And so Donald is answering that question, and he says that it is true, right? So he says true. Okay. So this is William. Hey man, William Massey. Good. Touch of Life Foods. Oh, you guys have some good food. I'll tell you that. If you guys are in Huntsville, actually, I think this might be the last week, right? Anyway, so yeah, check these guys out. You like their food. All right. So there are almost 500 million people in the world that live with diabetics. So Donald, you are correct. Okay. In the United States, there are 34.2 million people. And according to the statistics, about almost half of those people don't even know that they're diabetic. Okay. And so we are seeing people that are progressing to complications of their disease, and a lot of them don't even know. And one of the most common times when we do diagnose diabetics is when they have a heart attack, right? Or when someone with type 1 diabetes shows up in the ER and they're in DKA, or diabetic ketoacidosis. So it is, and we've not, I think you've heard me say this before, right? We've not used that word pandemic yet to apply to diabetes, but it is a huge issue. And November is Diabetes Awareness Month. And so for the entire month, people are doing so many different things in terms of celebrating the advances that we've had, bringing awareness to the community and to the world about diabetes and its complications, and the need for us to make sure that we are taking care of our diabetics. And so that's what this month is. And you'll see up here in one of these corners, I think it's over here. Right, it's always funny to do this on camera, right? You'll see our blue ribbon, and the blue ribbon is representing diabetes awareness. Last month, we had the pink ribbon up there, and that was our breast cancer. So diabetes awareness as we go through this month. So as we talk on each of our shows this month, it's going to be something related to diabetes, right? Something related to diabetes. And we've got a special treat for you on our show that is right before Thanksgiving. So you do not want to miss any of what we're going to be doing this month, right? And pay attention, keep an ear out, and we'll get to those. All right. So I want to start by telling you a story. Right. So by the way, right. Well, I'm not going to tell you yet. I'm going to start by telling you a story. Prior to 1921, most of the people who were diagnosed with diabetes ended up not living long. So diabetes, when you got diabetes in those days, it was a death sentence. In fact, the earliest reference to diabetes is in the 1500s, right? Where a physician was describing this disease process that caused emaciation, right? So withering and losing of weight, and caused a lot of peeing, right? So diabetes. And diabetes was first characterized by the fact that there was all this urine, right? All this sweetness to the urine. That's how it was characterized. And in the 1900s, the 1920s, this guy by the name of Banting, he was a surgeon, right? So he lived in Canada, and he had gone off to war, and he came back and he opened up his business, and I think he wasn't doing so well, and so he decided he wanted to do something else, right? And so he wanted to do some research, and he went off and he found this guy by the name of MacLeod, right? So this guy, and he was a big researcher at the time. I think he had won a Nobel Prize, and he said, "Hey, I want to do some research," and he came up with this idea that there was this stuff in the pancreas, and they knew about it at the time, that can cause blood sugars to come down. And let me jump ahead a little bit and say that this was not a unique idea to this guy Banting, right? So other people had been doing it, and in fact, if you listen to a lot of what's being said now for this year, there are some other places that say, "Hey, we should be included in the people who are who discovered this stuff." Right? I'm not going to say what this stuff is yet. So anyway, so they gave him a little lab, and they gave him an assistant. Right, the name of the assistant was Best. He was a low level guy. Not much was going on with him, and so these two guys got together, and they gave them this substance, this stuff that came from. Where did it come from? That's right, the pancreas of a dog. Right, and so they started researching this stuff, and this other fella, and I'm gonna pull up let me see if I got a picture. Right, okay. So there are these two guys, right? So Banting and Best. So if you scour the internet, you'll see this picture, and it's memorialized in books and papers, right? So Banting is the guy on the right, and Best is the guy on the left, and of course there's one of the dogs, right? And to make the story actually complete, we've got to add a couple of other people. I already told you about McLeod, right? McLeod is the guy who gave Banting this lab and gave him Best as an assistant. But then there's this other guy here called Collip. And Collip was the real scientist because he was the guy who was working on purifying stuff. And they realized that when they took this stuff and they gave it to dogs, it lowered their blood sugar. Woo! What do you think it's called? Anybody? Put it in the chat. What do you think that's called? Right? What do you think this stuff was called? Right? So they gave it to dogs, and it lowered their blood sugar. And they decided after a while that this stuff was good enough that they wanted to try it in a human. And so they kind of walked to one of the hospitals, and they convinced the doctors there to inject this stuff into a patient. And the first thing, it didn't work, right? First, the patient got this big whelp on their leg. And so they said, that's not good. We don't like that. So they went back and they purified it a little bit, and they injected it. And one of the very first patients to ever be, let's see, Donald Gaither, there you go. Right, you win a prize. Let me see if I got a sound here for you, Donald. Hold on, where are my sounds? I don't know if you guys can hear that. Yeah. Or Donald, right? So Donald said it was called insulin, and the very first patient to ever be administered insulin, right, was this guy by the name of Leonard Thompson. And you'll see him there on the left-hand side, because we said that prior to insulin, right, this was really a death sentence. And then after insulin, of course, you'll see Leonard there, and Leonard began putting on weight. And so we have insulin. Woohoo, that's right. Let's see if we there we go. So, okay. So we have this stuff. We have this stuff now called insulin. Now flash forward. And this year, guys, this year is the 100th anniversary for the development of insulin. Right? This year, we're 100 years away from when insulin first came on the scene. And today, there is not the death sentence that people have when they are diagnosed with diabetes. Now, if we go back to the 1920s, remember that the majority of people that had diabetes had what kind of diabetes? That's right, type 1 diabetes, or what we called at the time juvenile onset diabetes, okay? Now, we have a whole host of people, and the majority of people that are now being diagnosed with diabetes are not being diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, but they're being diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. Okay? And it's become, like I said, we're not applying that word pandemic yet, but man, we we need to do something. We need to do something to kind of get this under control. Okay, get this under control. All right, let's see. Who we got that's joining us? Ooh, that's Maria said. Ooh, that's right, Maria. So it is. Oh, let's go back. Let me see if I grab some. Oh, look at this. Hey, Ashley, what's up? And you've got our little girl with you. So glad that you guys are watching. Maria says, hey, Ashley. Donald, yes, Donald, insulin, you were right. So that's what it was. Hey, G. Albert, how are you doing, man? Glad you could join us. And woohoo, Maria, exactly. And so hi to G. Albert again. All right, so let's talk a little bit, right? Let's talk a little bit about some interesting things. Now, I told you the story about insulin, and I told you the story about insulin because I wanted to put it in a little context. And here it is. When we first characterized diabetes, we characterized diabetes based on the fact that there was all this sugar that was in the urine, right? So diabetes mellitus, so diabetes peeing, mellitus sugar, peeing sugar, right? So that's how we characterize diabetes. And then we began learning about diabetes, and the defect in diabetes is what? The defect is insulin. God, that's right. The defect is insulin. But listen to this, guys. We never went back to redefine diabetes. And so everybody now thinks that diabetes is a sugar problem. Wait for it. But guess what? There it is. It's not a sugar problem. Diabetes is not a sugar problem. Diabetes is an insulin problem. It is an insulin deficiency when we talk about type 1s, patients who live with type 1. And it is ineffective insulin when we talk about patients who live with type 2 diabetes. So we are actually treating, so high blood sugars, right? That is a symptom of the core defect. So the high sugar is a symptom of the core defect. Now, and I'm going to put a little note right here because I have something else to say about that we're going to come later. So it's not a sugar problem. Now, granted, most of what we see are sugar issues. And what we're seeing are the complications of sugar, whether it's neuropathy, right, where the nerves are being damaged by the high sugars, or we're doing retinopathy where the high sugars are damaging the eyes, or nephropathy where the sugar is damaging the kidneys. But it is a symptom and a complication of another issue, right? So it's an insulin issue, which is why if we talk about type 2 diabetes is an insulin-resistant problem. So if we can attack the core problem, come on with me, guys. Yeah. If we attack the core problem, right, then we can move diabetes from where it is as this global thing, and we can send it back in the other direction, right? In the other direction. Now, for type 1 diabetics, it is an insulin deficiency. And we have not yet, notice that word, yet. We have not yet come to the point where we are able, right, to supplement them without giving them insulin. So let's jump back for a minute. So these guys, right, and these guys are up in Canada. So they go to this forum, or they go to this conference, and in the conference is one of the guys from Eli Lilly, right? And he sees that this thing can be amazing, right? I mean, think of the implications. And so he says to Banting, Best, and it was really Banting and Best at the time, because McLeod he had been traveling and doing some other stuff, so he wasn't really at the conference. Well, I don't know if he was at the conference, but he was not involved in the presentation as such, right? So these two guys were the main presenters. And so this guy from Lilly says, oh, this is some good stuff. So he approaches them and say, hey, we want to partner with you. And Banting and Best said, no, we can do this ourselves. We don't need you. And so they go back home. And so now they're starting to get requests from all over the place for insulin, right? That's what we call insulin. And they're not able to efficiently produce it, because now you got to mass produce it. And so they get a second offer from Lilly, and they agree. They also partner with what would become Novo Nordisk now. And so we have the first two companies that begin producing on a global or mass scale, if you will, insulin. And so that's how insulin became such a big deal, because it was a huge issue at the time. All right. Let's see. So William says insulin. Yep. Hey, Ashley. Oh, you guys are just greeting each other. Juvenile onset. Right. Juvenile onset is what we used to call, people still use the name juvenile onset, but we've gone more to type 1 or type 2. Okay. William says, hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. Oh, ketones. Oh, William, you're jumping ahead, man. So ketones, right. Ketones are a big issue. All right. So that's kind of getting into the story. So number one thing that you may not have known, right, is it's an insulin problem, right? It's not a blood sugar problem. The blood sugar is a consequence of the fact that we have that there's an insulin issue that's going on. Okay, so does that mean then that a person who has diabetes, who goes on insulin, cannot get off of insulin, right? So I hear that all the time. And what do you think? The answer to that is, that's not a true statement. Just because you go on insulin doesn't mean you have to stay on insulin. Now, let me hasten to say, and we're talking specifically about our type 2 patients, right? Patients who are living with type 2 diabetes. In the case of type 1 diabetes, that is an insulin requiring disease at this time. And notice I keep saying at this time, because there's so much that's going on, right? That is just exciting. Okay. All right. So that's insulin. As we get through the month, we're going to talk about some other things in terms of treatment for diabetes. So that's the insulin part. Can you get off of insulin? The answer is yes. And how do you think you get off of insulin? Well, yeah, all the things that we talk about, right? So my wife does a very good program, with her clients called Reshape, and all of those things. And we talk about it here, right? We've talked about the fact that we've got to deal with our stress and our sleep and our anxiety and our depression, right? So we've talked about all those things and our activity, and we've talked about medication and sleep and food, right? So all of those things combined help us to move our diabetes, our insulin resistance backwards, right? And so now we are able to not have to take as much insulin. Now, so insulin is not bad. That's right, I said it. I said it. Insulin is not bad, right? We use insulin for what it has to do, right? But if you are living with type 2 diabetes, then I always tell our patients, I always tell those folks that I talk to, that our goal is to use as little medication as possible. And by doing all those things, and we won't get into those things tonight, we talk about those as we get through the month, doing those things will help us, okay? All right. So can diabetes be put into remission? Oh, very good. So I'm gonna pause there for a sec. I'm gonna pause there for a second, and I'm going to jump over, because we do have some questions that are some frequently asked questions, and let's see if we can grab a couple of those. Oh, so is it okay to drink Coke Zero, Diet Coke, Coke Zero sugar when you are diabetic? You know what? I'm going to hold on to that question, and let's see. There's another one here. Let's get rid of that one. There we go. Stevia, Splenda, Equal, are they good for diabetics, right? And the reason I wanted to do that one is because it correlates with this question about drinking diet drinks, okay? So let me start by saying, and let me get this off the screen as I begin to talk. There we go. No, wrong one. Okay, there we go. There. So when we talk about diet drinks and sweeteners, right? And that's kind of what we're talking about here. So diet drinks and sweeteners. The diet drinks and the sweeteners condition the body, or they stimulate the body. Let me say that, or they trigger in the body. They signal to the body some of the same things that we get when we eat and or drink regular Cokes and sodas. Let me say that, drinks, right? So when we drink regular drinks, we get a certain signaling in the body. Hormones come out, the hunger hormone, the satiety hormone, insulin is coming out, and all of those things can also be triggered when we're drinking some of the diet drinks. The issue is that now you've got all these hormonal changes that are happening, but there's no food that comes, right? There's no sugar. There's no energy that comes. And so now these hormones are still floating around, and later on, they can make you hungry, right? So that in a case where you would have had a soda, a drink in the normal case, now you've had a diet, and now you become hungry later on, and you're less likely to be able to control the hunger that you feel later than at the time when you were drinking the drink, right? So people end up eating and or drinking more, and so that causes other issues, higher blood sugars, they put on weight, and so forth, okay? The other thing is that there are some studies that have shown that some of the sweeteners, they can damage the gut flora. And damage to the gut flora, we have seen in cases where that can lead to other issues. Once again, malabsorption. And gut flora is implicated in obesity, right? So having abnormal gut flora. So in and of themselves, right, they may not be a problem for blood sugar, but they can cause issues later on. Okay, they can cause issues later on. Okay. How long will it take for my sugar to go down to a good number? Wow, that's actually a good one. So how long does it take for blood sugar to go down to a good number and a normal number? If you go over to our TikTok that we did this past week, we talk about what are some of the goals for our blood sugars, right? So where do we want it when we're fasting? Where do we want it when we are before our meal? And I usually tell our patients that we want their fasting blood sugar to be between 100 and 120. That's fasting. If you look at the guidelines, if you read the papers, they'll say a normal blood sugar is anywhere from 70 to 180. Okay? We try to do it a little tighter than that. And then before meals, we usually recommend that blood sugars are less than 150. Right? So with those in mind, to answer the question, how long does it take for us to get there? And the answer is, you can get there very, very quickly. Okay? Whether we're type 1s and we're using insulin, right? Sometimes people come into the hospital, they're in DKA, and the very first thing that we do is we do fluids, right? Give them some fluids, we get their blood sugar down, and pretty soon we begin to see that their blood sugars are coming down. Now, if they're in DKA, that may take a day or so, right? It may take a day for us to get it and get it regulated. So it spikes up and down, and so we're giving them insulin, they're on the drip, right? For a person who is type 2 diabetic, now what did we say the issue was? It's an insulin resistant problem. And so a lot of times we end up giving medication, but we've talked on this show on intermittent fasting. If you've not already done that, go ahead and look at our episode that we did on intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting is amazing for its ability to lower blood sugar, right? Water, fluids, once again, just like the type 1s. Of course, you're taking that orally. So to answer the question is, I can't give you hours, right? But within days, we can get the blood sugar down into a normal range. The question is, though, can we keep it there? And that's where sometimes people will struggle, is that we're able to get it down, right? But can we keep it there? And we can keep it there. Initially, a lot of times we end up using medication. Once again, I say that, and that's not a bad word, guys, right? Medication is not a bad word, because we use it for what we need it for. And then we can, and then we're able to transition people. Okay. All right, let's see. Does being a diabetic mean I can't drink alcohol? Whoa. So these are some good questions. And so the answer is no. Okay, on face value. It does not mean that you cannot do that. I put alcohol into the same category as I put all carbs. Okay, so they do have carbs in them. People come in and say, hey, can I drink beer? And beer has carbs, so alcohol has carbs. And so if you're having alcohol, you've got to be very careful in how you are using the alcohol as it relates to carbs. So that's the first thing. No, the second thing is people who are consuming a lot of alcohol, particularly if they're type 2, right? Remember that we've got this insulin resistance going. We've got this metabolic syndrome going. We've got this possible issue with our liver going, right? So if we're not careful, we can cause additional issues with the consumption of alcohol. All right? Very good. Very good questions. All right, so let's see. Blind guy, let's see. We got Donald. So Donald's, you're answering our question. Yeah. So how can we treat? How can we get those blood sugars down with weight loss? Thank you for saying that, Donald. Because insulin resistance, right? Insulin resistance gets worse as we put on weight. And what Donald said, weight loss again. So sorry. Let's see. So sorry, I meant type 1. Donald, can you clarify that for me? I'm not sure what you're referring to there. And then let's see, blind guy. Intermittent fasting has been great. Nice to hear you mention keeping the blood sugars down, not just getting it down. Oh yeah. So thank you, blind guy. And I don't know if that's Corey or Laquita. Okay, one of you guys. Thanks for joining us tonight. So it is the high blood sugar that causes damage. Let me say that again. It's the high blood sugar that causes the damage. Oftentimes we'll have people say, well, my blood sugar was high, but I brought it down, right? Or I kind of watch it, and if it gets too high, I treat it. Well, guess what? The fact that it went high is the thing that caused the damage. You may have treated it and brought it down, but there's still damage that's going on. And let me give you an example of this, right? This is a silly example, but I'm going to use it anyway. So imagine you're in a boat, right? And you're on the boat and you're minding your business. And every now and then there's a guy in the pond or in the river, wherever you are, on the lake, and he comes up and he takes a ice pick. All right? Does anybody know what an ice pick is? Anyway, he takes a nail. Yeah, everybody knows what a nail is. He takes a nail and he sticks a hole in the boat. And he goes away. And guess what? When he sticks that hole in the boat, you don't even realize it, right? You don't know it. Nothing happens to the boat because the boat doesn't sink. Because one nail, unless it's like a really tiny boat or unless it's one of those floaty boats, right? So we're not going to say a floaty boat. We're going to say one of these, maybe a pontoon or something like that. And he sticks the hole and you don't notice, right? Maybe a little water comes in. And he comes back and he sticks a hole, right? Nothing happens. And he keeps doing that, right? Keeps doing that. After a while, guess what happens to that boat? That's right. It starts to go down, right? Because it's a cumulative effect. And so having high blood sugars, since that's what's causing the issue, we want to minimize how high the blood sugar goes and how long the blood sugar stays there. Okay? All right? So good. So thank you. Blind guy, his wife, their lives. So we don't just want to get it down. We want to keep it down. Okay? So Donna said, he said, Donna says, that's not me. That was, that's William that says that. Okay. So happy Monday, guys. And let's see. Let's grab this question. So it says, hi, I have a friend who is struggling to lose belly fat. In all honesty, he has an addiction to Coca-Cola. Can a soda drink increase his fat in his belly, or can he run for major while receiving back shots? Let me see let me read that again, because I didn't get the last part. It says, can a soda drink increase his fat in his belly, or can he run for major? So I'm gonna tackle the first part of that. And hey, Matthew, by the way, welcome. Matthew Smith on the cover. If you can clarify the last part of that for me, we'll go ahead and we'll grab that first part of it. So he has, can a soda drink increase his fat? So let's talk about carbs. So carbs are one of the three types of substances that we ingest that gives us energy. There's proteins, there are fats, and there are carbs. All right. And our protein, the body processes it. We eat it, we digest it, the body breaks it down, processes it, and goes off, and it goes to the liver and packages, and it's almost sometimes, depending on what's going on, almost a storage form, right? So we're using that for building blocks. Fats get packaged, they get emulsified, they get packaged, and they go and we pump them into fat cells. Carbohydrates give us almost immediate energy. And think about going to the grocery store and you come home, and most of us don't cook all of the stuff we just brought home, right? We take some of the stuff and we put it in the pantry, right? And then when we need it, we go back and we get it out. So I want you to think of coming home, all right, as eating something, drinking something that has carbs in it. So there's that immediate energy. And the body has to figure out what to do with that energy. Yeah. Some of it is going to burn right now, right? Because you're running, jumping, skipping, you're going up a steps, you're living and doing your thing, right? So some of that energy goes right now. But if the body does not need that energy, what do you think it does with it? Yeah, it takes that energy and it stores it. And the most common places, right, are those places that we see, right? In the abdomen, right? In the flanks, right? Back of the arms, right? And some of those, and sometimes when we see that fat, people think that we're just seeing all the fat that's there. But the fact is that there is fat on the inside as well, and that fat is wrapping around our organs, right? It's called visceral fat. And so not only are we seeing that belly fat, but we also have this fat that's being formed around the organs, which you can't really see. Okay? So thank you. So Matthew says, well, okay, thank you. He's clarifying. See, the last part, let me put it up here. The last part, can he run as an exercise even though his major issue is belly fat? He feels pain and can make him feel like being shot in the back. Weird example, but that's what he tells me. Okay, so basically what Matthew is saying is that, so he's got this fat. Does running help with belly fat? And the absolute example, or the absolute answer is yes, it does. Okay? Now, there are some other things that you may have to do to target the belly fat. But weight loss in general, weight loss causes fat to be lost all over. Okay. Now it's just that this guy, this belly fat is more tenacious, right? And sometimes we've got to do targeted exercises to get rid of the belly fat. But exercising, running, yes, it can. Now, you mentioned there about he feels pain when he's running and moving. Sometimes some of the pain that we feel is because of weight, right? And so we may have to find something that is gentler on our joints. So one of the things that they recommend, or we recommend, is swimming, right? Because that's gentler. Sometimes bike riding, right, is gentler. And this is not, getting on a bike and riding around the neighborhood, although that is helpful as well, right? But maybe one of those recumbent bikes, right? And it may be that we do some simpler things like walking. How about that? Right? Because sometimes we try to jump straight to running, but we've not walked, right? So you can start walking. We can start walking. Okay. So we talk about, is it possible to get off insulin, right? Diabetes. Here's a word: remission. Remission. So diabetes can be put into remission. Yes. So that as we are working to decrease the insulin resistance, we're working on the weight, like Matthew just asked about. All of those things are with the intention of decreasing our blood sugar, right? But also they're with the intention of decreasing our insulin resistance. So not only are we treating the symptom, which is the high sugar, but we're also treating the core defect, which is the insulin resistance, right? And so trying to improve that. And some wonderful things. Intermittent fasting is a wonderful way of trying to do that. In fact, a lot of the low carb diets are with the intention of treating insulin resistance. Insulin resistance. All right. So something else that you may not know. So right now, we have said that for type 1 diabetics, patients who live with type 1 diabetes, the only thing that can lower their blood sugar is insulin. And the answer is, all right, let's hear it. Drum roll. That's not actually true. Right. There are other medications, right? So for instance, our SGLT2s, which are one of the medications that we use that treats blood sugars by putting sugar in the kidneys, our GLP-1s, right, can also lower blood sugars in our type 1 diabetics. Ooh, yeah, isn't that amazing? So the reason I bring this up, right, and for our patients who are type 1 diabetics, don't run out and just stop your insulin, right, and say, give me a SGLT2 or GLP-1, right? There is a mechanistic issue that we run into, right? Because remember that for type 1 diabetics, the issue, and we said that the issue in diabetes is not sugar. It's not a sugar problem. So for our type 1 diabetics, we can lower the blood sugar, but they still need insulin to survive. Okay? So it's not that their blood sugars are high that's causing them the problem. They need insulin, and insulin does a lot of different things. So there are medications that we have that have been studied, that are being looked at for this blood sugar lowering. But what has happened is sometimes we end up lowering the blood sugar so much that we've got to cut back on the insulin. And once we start cutting back on the insulin, that's when our type 1 diabetics run into trouble, right? Run into issues. Does that make sense? Okay. So yeah, so that's that's an interesting one, right? Because we've always said, hey, no, you got to have it. The only way to lower your blood sugar is with insulin. And the answer to that is not the case, right? Because we can do some other things. Diabetics, type 1 and type 2 diabetics can eat carbs. What? I thought carbs were bad. No. Carbs are not bad. That's right. I said it. Right? Carbs are not bad. Right? Carbs are not bad. So the body uses carbs for energy. The body uses carbs for what? Energy. That's right. And so if we need energy, right, so we've got to provide that. Now we can provide it in other ways, like protein and fats, in fact. But the body does use carbs. And so monitoring the carbs is where we need to be. Yeah. So all the things that we talk about with carbs, it is so important that we are planning, that we are looking at the carbs, and we're making sure that we're not going overboard. One of the examples I use, for those of you who know anything about cars, right? So I remember when we lived in Ohio, I would come out and sometimes like, right? You turn the key and the car wouldn't start. And you'd hit that gas, right? A couple of times and you go, and the car would start up, right? What happened if you pumped the gas one too many times? Right? You would flood the carburetor. And so even though there is gas in the car does not move because the carburetor is flooded. And what did you have to do for the car to run at that point? Well, you had to wait, right? Until the carburetor dried out. And there's some other tricks that people use, right? But there's energy. And if we use the same analogy, there is sugar in the body. The body uses sugar as energy, just like the car uses gas. And our goal is not to flood the system. Because when we flood the system, we get into all kinds of problems. And so even though we have the energy in the body, we have the sugar, we have the glucose in there, the body can't use it properly, right? So I know that's a crude analogy, but you guys get the idea. Okay, so let's hop back over here. So here's one. So we go back here to I cycle a lot, and this is Matthew. He says, I cycle a lot. Why am I not losing belly fat? And so cycling, once again, is a very good way of exercising, right? Not just for cardiovascular, for weight loss and so forth, right? But sometimes we have to do some targeted exercises for the abdomen. So it's great that you're doing that and you're using and you're burning calories, and so the rest of you probably looks good, right? But sometimes we've got to do specific things that target the abdomen. Now, in the old days, we do sit-ups and crunches, and right. So my son is telling me I got to do planks and some other things that right. So trying to target that core area. Okay, it's a very good question. All right, so Blind Guy says, I heard someone today say carbs are the issue with any diet, not fat. I said it is fat because the fat cells hold salt and sugar. Can you say it right so I can go back and brag? I like that, Blind Guy. All right, so let's go through that again. So I heard someone today, I'm going to put it up again. I heard someone today say carbs are the issue with any diet, not fat. I said it is the fat because the fat cells hold sugar, salt and sugar. Can you say it right so we can go back and brag? Okay. So I'm going to be a politician on this run, right? So both can be issues, both fat and carbs. Now, here's something, right? So talking about things that we may not know. Do you know that at this moment, all of us have the same number of fat cells, with exception, there's some that we were born with? What? Are you kidding me? I thought somebody gave me some extra ones, right? But no, we have the exact same number of fat cells that we were born with. And so what begins happening is not that we get more cells, but we actually put more stuff in it. All right, so that's why cells get big and big and big, right? So those fat cells are getting there. So once again, when we are talking about the different macros that we have, proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. Proteins, everybody kind of have accepted that proteins are good. You can eat protein. They help build muscle and so forth. But there's always this contention between the fat people And when I say fat, the people who talk about fat being bad, and the people who talk about carbs being bad. And so let's talk about carbs first. And we talked a little bit ago that carbs give us immediate energy, right? And so they are more likely in the immediate to cause, whether it's weight gain, cause our blood sugars to go up, right? And those go down to cause other issues in the body. The fats take a little bit longer to process, right? And package. And then we have to go back and we have to break that down to burn it. But a lot of our carbs are immediate energy, right? So they both can cause issues in excess. Carbs give us that almost immediate response that we kind of see. All right. Let's see. Is type 1 insulin dependent indefinitely? And the answer is currently yes. Now, here's the thing, right? So currently, yes, type 1s are insulin dependent. Now, we are starting to see people who are type 1 diabetics, who live with type 1 diabetes, who are developing symptoms of type 2 diabetes because they're putting on weight. Right? So we have a type 1 diabetic who is putting on weight now, and so they begin seeing some of the same progressions that we see in our patients who live with type 2. But currently they are insulin dependent. And so here is something, right? So there's all this research that's going on. And so we've got insulin pumps to deliver insulin. We've got all these medications that are coming out. There is even research that's going on a pill form of insulin, right? One of the reasons that we can't take insulin by pill right now or internally is what we call the first pass effect. And I mean, you don't have to know that, but what happens is the liver is very good at taking stuff that shouldn't be in our system and breaking it down, right? So if you take insulin orally, it kind of goes to the liver and the liver grabs it and destroys it. So that's why insulin right now, you can't take it orally. So we give it subcutaneously. But can you imagine if we were able to put insulin in a pill that you could take and you just, right? So not that we're trying to perpetuate that, but yeah, I mean, there's that research that's going on. And ultimately, there is a combination of technological research, so pumps and CGMs and insulin InPens, and then medication. And right now, the combination of the two, in addition to a third, right? So I'm going to put in there. So we've got the technology, right? So that's the hardware and software. We've got the medication. And then we've got the lifestyle management. So it's not that you got to sit in one of those two camps. There are 3 camps, actually. Okay? And so sometimes we're straddling 1, 2, or even 3 of the camps as we try to work on dealing with blood sugars. Okay. All right. So here's William has a question. Is the type 1 insulin dependent? Will there ever be a time that type 1 can dismiss the insulin? And so that goes back to our question that we just answered, William. So there's research going on. In fact, one of the most promising things that came along, and we're still kind of waiting for this to come to fruition, was when they started doing islet cell transplants, right? So they would take islet cells, they would transplant them, or they would try to grow islet cells using some of the regenerative properties of the liver, right? We still haven't seen a lot of forward motion there, but there's so much research that's going on. And I think, let me see. Okay. Let's see. Right. When will we find a cure for diabetes? And there are people who, let's get rid of that one. There are people who right now were told when they were kids, we're going to get it in your lifetime. And they're, older now, and they're like, okay, it's not my lifetime. But there is research constantly going on. Because, I mean, guys, if we can attack diabetes, if we can get a hold of this thing, wow. Okay. Let's see. So William said aqua aerobics. Maria, check. Yeah, so let's do it. Yeah, let's do that right now, Maria. I'm gonna jump over here. So, guys, once again, if you've not been to any of our social media, please hop over there, and we'd love to have you engage with some of the other things that we do. For this channel, we are trying to grow the channel. So, if you have family members, friends, share this with them. Go ahead and like this video right now and share it with someone, and subscribe. We're trying to grow the community, trying to build, and all of our different social media platforms that you see there. We've not said a lot about buymeacoffee.com, but if you'd like to support our channel, please go ahead and do that. See us on our lives every Monday night here at 7 o'clock. Watch us on our TikTok on Friday, as we mentioned, and then every day you can look at us and see us on our Twitter feed. All right. So very good. So this past weekend, my family and I went to the Jesse Owens Museum in Oakville. All right, and we would pass it on the highway. And this weekend, my wife says, "Hey, let's go and let's see this." And I'll tell you guys, and I'm wearing the shirt right now. This is a polo shirt that I got there, and I was amazed because Jesse Owens lived in a 2-bedroom house. I think there were 10 kids. And to imagine all of the things that he did in his life, becoming an ambassador, going to the Olympics and winning 4 gold medals. And one of the stories that was impressive to me is this one. So he showed up at school, right? And his name is actually James Cleveland. And the teacher asked him his name, and he told her his name. And she didn't hear him properly. She thought he said Jesse. And he was so shy and so quiet and so introverted that he didn't correct her. Right? And guess what name stuck? Jesse. And so we know him now as Jesse Owens because of this thing that happened when he was young. And I was thinking about that. And he is a great guy, right? So there's some other stuff that, and I'm going to, when I went there, there's so much stuff that I have, that I've started writing. I took pictures, right, that I want to use as I think about things that I do in my life, and then we'll share that with you, right? But here is a guy who was so shy that he couldn't even correct the teacher when she gave him a new name, that went on to become probably the greatest runner. And there's some some question about whether him or Carl Lewis was a faster runner. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. But he went on to become one of the greatest athletes in the world. So for us, as we think about diabetes or weight issues, or even some of the things that we have going on in our families right now, depression and anxiety and so forth, we can overcome it. It takes determination, it takes perseverance, and sometimes, guys, it takes help. Because you know what Jesse Owens had? He had a coach. Yep. He had a coach. And the athletes and the musicians and the people who are in places of prominence, guess what they have? They don't do it alone. They have a coach. And so as we are being tenacious in trying to do all the things that we want to do in our lives, our health, and just developing ourselves in our families, whatever issues may be going on, we do not have to do it by ourselves. There are people who are out there who can help us, just like Jesse Owens, and can help us reach that height that we want. Okay, so that's my thought for you tonight. And we are always so excited and always so thankful that you guys have joined us. Thank you for being here. We will see you at our next video next week, Monday at 7 p.m. This is Dr. Dwain Woode from Diabetes and Endocrine Wellness Center and The Light Away, educating the public for a better you. Let's get some music and let's get on out of here.